Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Malone University's Enactus team as we present Setting Your Salary, a brief overview of discussing salary-related concerns with a prospective employer. Everyone at all skill levels should listen carefully and sharpen these skills when looking for a job. Where do you start? Obviously, this idea of discussing salary with a potential employer is very challenging. So you want to make sure that you do your research in advance, just as you would researching the organization itself. So try to look for salary information and try to learn as much about the position as you're applying for, as this will make a big difference in terms of compensation. This may not provide all the answers that you need, so I suggest looking at multiple places, doing multiple searches, and trying to gather a whole bunch of data and information to help direct you. Now, you should probably have an average salary in mind just from past experience and what your perceptions are of the position. This will help give you a solid baseline for moving forward. Another thing you'll want to determine is, are you flexible or negotiable? After you find an average salary, think about the wage you would gladly take or highly pass on. You'll want to take various factors into consideration, such as your experience, your age, your expertise, and just the field in general that you're trying to apply for. So you want to make note of all of that and make sure that you have this concept brought to the idea before you even arrive at the interview. So when do you want to ask about compensation? Obviously, this is a very difficult question, and nobody's probably running to go jump and answer this. So you want to take into consideration you never want to talk about compensation during your first interview. Instead, you'll want to focus on communicating your value proposition. What is it that you have to offer this employer? And how can that make a big difference to their success? Now, in the second interview, that's when you're all right to go ahead and talk about compensation, but you'll want to do so with caution. Always be very tactful when discussing compensation with a potential employer, and just generally ease into the question. Try to figure out some way to kind of just flow into it so it looks very natural and is kind of somewhat hidden. Also, you'll want to make sure that you lead into the question by describing your interest in the job. Describe how passionate you are for the position, the organization, and how your particular skill set matches what they are seeking. That'll very easily allow for a transition into a compensation-related question. Also, there's many things to take into consideration. Obviously, it's easy to just say, on an hourly rate, this company pays a lot more than this company, or on a salary rate, this company has a lot higher salary than this company. But there's a lot more to compensation than just salary here. You have to take into consideration all the other benefits and perks that an organization might have, and surprisingly, these benefits and perks can add up to a lot of money. And that company that you thought might potentially have a higher salary, by the time you add in the benefits and perks of another company, might actually be higher. So you really want to take this into consideration. Many of these factors include vacation time. Do you get vacation time during the first year? Do you have a waiting period of 2 to 3 years? How many weeks of vacation do you get? Obviously, there's a big difference between 1 week of vacation and 3 weeks in terms of compensation. You also want to inquire about the health insurance. Obviously, a lot of different plans out there in the marketplace, and some of those plans are a lot greater benefit to employees than others. So that can be of a significant value right there. Also, like an ESOP plan, does the organization have an employee stock ownership program? That could also be very beneficial and save you money for retirement, which also flows into the type of retirement plan do they have. Do they have a 401k? Do they have a company match? Really important things to take into consideration. Also, you want to look at flexible hours. Maybe you have kids, maybe you have elderly parents, and you want to be able to be a little bit more flexible than the traditional 8 to 5 schedule. Really important to take that into consideration. Also, the ability to work remotely. Obviously now in the coronavirus pandemic, this has really changed this particular landscape, but it's also another nice factor to have for many different reasons. Also, does the organization provide work-related technology? Do they give you a laptop, a personal cell phone? Do they cover those type of expenses so you can do your job effectively? Or is it on you to go purchase those things? Because obviously with those differences there, that can be a difference financially. And also, does the organization cover any development and training costs? Obviously, if you want to strive to any certificates in the future or any goals that you have in terms of training and developing your career, does this organization cover this? Because again, education, instruction, and things like that can be very costly. I'd like to thank you for joining us for part 1 here as we discussed how to talk about salary with a potential employer, and I strongly encourage you to listen to part 2 of this podcast which is going to go into more detail about solutions for salary-related concerns. So again, thank you for joining us for part 1. I strongly encourage you to listen to part 2 for more solutions with the salary-related questions.